So today we are excited to welcome Dr. Ken Schneck. Ken describes himself as an action-oriented rabble-rouser. He is insightful, he is irreverent, and always he is inspiring. You may know him as the tenured faculty member at Baldwin Wallace, challenging undergraduate and graduate students to question the status quo. You may know his writing as founder and editor of the Buckeye Flame, and you may recall him as the keynote for a conference and facilitator for a workshop. You may recognize his voice as a guest moderator or commentator on Sound of Ideas, or the host of the nationally syndicated radio show podcast, This Show Is So Gay. You may recognize his byline from the Huffington Post, Cleveland Magazine, Prism, or Freshwater Cleveland. Or you may have witnessed his infectious passion for social justice issues at a rally or even at a stand-up comic routine. Regardless of how you encounter Dr. Schneck, you will walk away with your thoughts challenged, your assumptions questioned, and your behavior primed to change, for he wields wit and wisdom in equal doses to inspire individuals to action. His mantra is to amplify voices to create actual change, instead of creating more meetings about creating actual change. Who can argue with that? Fortunately for us, Ken, a New Jersey native, moved to Cleveland in 2013 to take a job as professor of leadership in higher education at Baldwin Wallace University. Since that time, he has blazed a trail for the LGBTQ community in Northeast Ohio and across the state. His writing is award-winning. In 2021, he received the Sarah Pettit Memorial Award for the LGBTQ Journalist of the Year, and the Ohio Society of Professional Journalists awarded him first place for the Best Criticism Editorial, and Cleveland Magazine bestowed on him the title of one of the most interesting people in Cleveland in 2024. Please welcome Dr. Schneck.
Jeez. All right, well, that's all I have to say, folks, and thanks for coming out. Wow, okay, that was a lot, and I really appreciate it, and I'm thrilled to spend just a really quick amount of time with you all talking to you about the Buckeye Flame and why it exists, because it gets at a lot of what's going on in Ohio right now, and specifically for us, what's going on in the media space. So this is going to be an unbelievably fast crash course. Here we go. Rachel, give me a thumbs up that that's on the screen. Awesome. And I'm going to move you all to over here. 23 super gay slides in 15 minutes. And this is one of those slides. So let's keep going. So the Buckeye Flame, if you don't know, the Buckeye Flame, and we have board members on here as well. So hi, Josh. The Buckeye Flame stands as Ohio's only LGBTQ plus newsroom. We are the latest in a really incredible tradition of LGBTQ media that's existed across Ohio. It is low-key bizarre that we are the only one standing right now, other than Fusion at Kent State University, which is a wonderful student publication. But we cover the whole state, and our mission is to amplify LGBTQ plus Ohioans towards creating civic and community change. If you're not subscribed, you get one email a week. This slide will be at the end as well. It is totally free, and it keeps you in the know about what's happening all across Ohio. So we were founded really for two reasons: to cover issues and to address things in the media. So super fast crash course in what's happening right now in Ohio that we are covering. And this is not an exhaustive list. There are many bills that some of you who I saw your names on here and I see your faces have worked on some of these issues that we're not even going to talk about. So this is not an exhaustive list. Please, no one feel slighted by the ones that I'm covering. These are just some of the bills that are furthest along. HB 8 is the Parents' Bill of Rights. This is one of the ones as a professor of education that I tend to talk about the most because it intersects so much with my academic life. And the Parents' Bill of Rights would force all teachers and school staff, which includes school psychologists, school counselors, school social workers, to automatically out LGBTQ youth to their parents. This bill has passed through the Ohio House. It is being heard in the Ohio Senate. It definitely has movement to it. There is a curricular component to this bill. The others call this a don't say gay, don't say trans bill. Because I'm the one who's doing the slides, I'm going to focus on this part, the part that would have a chilling effect on all youth, not just LGBTQ youth, but all youth. If this bill goes through and suddenly teachers, school psychologists, school counselors, school social workers are no longer trusted sources for any youth if they believe that information is going to be shared with their families. This is the big one we cover. One that I'm sure many of you have heard about, HB 68, which has two components to it. It's the Save Adolescents from Experimentation Act, which bans gender-affirming care for minors in Ohio. And at the very last minute, it was combined with the Save Women's Sports Act, which bans trans female athletes. As many of you know, this was one of the bills actually passed through the Ohio House, passed through the Ohio Senate, vetoed by Governor DeWine, overridden by the House and by the Senate. That's how intent they are to pass this bill. Currently, it's on hold with a lawsuit pending. So right now, families are scrambling in Ohio to line their trans youth up with gender-affirming care, because there's a part in the bill that allows a grandfather clause for minors to access gender-affirming care if they are connected before the bill goes into effect. So we will see what happens in July, but this one has moved through the whole process. HB 183 was called the bathroom bill, but now it's not called the bathroom bill because they're very clever. It's now called the Protect All Students Act. The Protect All Students Act, you would think, would be about healthcare or about guns, or about any number of things that are affecting students in schools. No, it is solely about bathrooms. It will force all individuals, not just in K through 12. This is a huge misconception that this bill only applies to K through 12. It absolutely does not. It affects higher ed as well. And then another misconception, folks think that it just affects public higher ed. Absolutely not. This would affect every single college and university in the state of Ohio and would force all individuals to use the restroom that corresponds to their gender identity that's on their birth certificate that was issued as at birth. So if everyone could just, because I know you all have it on you, if everyone could just hold up their birth certificates, that would, no, of course not, because no one carries those around with them. So even a professor at Baldwin Wallace who transitioned their gender 20 years ago would have to go to a different restroom. This obviously puts a lot of people in danger. This has already moved through the House committee and will soon be heard on the floor of the Ohio House and will then work its way through the Senate. This one is why I really have to finish quickly, because as some of you know, HB 245 to ban public drag, this is being heard right this hour. There are a couple other bills in the committee before this one comes up, so I should have enough time to bop on over and cover this. So stay tuned to the Buckeye Flame, because this article will be up by the end of the day. This will ban any public drag, which would include drag queen story hours, events that are aimed at literacy. Any drag in public. So that's coming up. And then just to throw in something that happened this week, that's how current we have to be at the Buckeye Flame. HB 622, was just proposed this week, and it would defund libraries if they display any materials harmful to juveniles. And as should surprise no one on this Zoom, the phrase harmful to juveniles is barely defined. So libraries are very much under assault. So there are so many other bills. There are some positive bills as well that I will hit on in a few minutes. But these are just some of the reasons that the Buckeye Flame exists. We really want to increase everybody's legislative literacy to connect what's happening in the Ohio State House to the real world effects. This isn't just something happening in Columbus. It really will affect every single school across Ohio and other parts of society. So those are the issues. But here's the other thing that we've really discovered about the Buckeye Flame and our importance in the world. It's also how LGBTQ issues are being covered in other media. So I want to give you a snapshot. I don't get to do this all the time, so I'm really excited to share this all with you, because I think that when I talk to people about, well, the Buckeye Flame covers LGBTQ plus Ohioans with grace, sensitivity, and education, they don't understand what the alternative is. So I want to show you, these are all things that have happened since the Buckeye Flame was launched in 2020. We are a nonprofit newsroom, and proudly so. We're about to celebrate our 4th anniversary, and we're really excited about it. So here are just some headlines that have come up. This is one from the New York Times. This is the only non-Ohio one, but this certainly got the ball rolling and conversations happening across the country on what op-eds look like. Yes, we want to create space for op-eds, but this op-ed in particular had a lot of scientific misinformation and a lot of just anti-trans hate. And when it's published by the New York Times, that's really problematic. That's on a national scale. Let's look at Ohio. This is all within the past couple years. This is a piece that happened a couple years ago in Dayton. This was an HIV positive man who was busted in a police sting. There are 6 laws in Ohio that currently criminalize living with HIV. There is a bill that was introduced a few weeks ago, and I know some of you were involved with that here on the Zoom, to reform, to modernize those HIV laws. So that's a great thing. But right now on the books, 6 laws that criminalize living with HIV. In this coverage, the Dayton Daily News, who I'm sure is a lovely publication, and if your uncle works for them, they're great. I don't know them. This article not only had medical misinformation, but it actually printed the address of this individual. They republished the police report. In this one, and we're going to come back to this one in a second, because this is a really important piece for us. This Youngstown woman who pled guilty to an amended charge for failure to tell a partner that she has HIV. Okay, a couple things. First of all, the original headline said that she had AIDS, which she did not, just a conflation of HIV and AIDS. And we actually reached out to this news outlet to say, you have to correct this. Also, not a Youngstown woman. This is a trans male. Really problematic coverage. This piece, same thing, sentenced to 1 year for hiding HIV from partner. That's absolutely, this was now after the effect. That is not what happened. Again, this was a trans male. She wasn't, first of all, she's not a she uses he, him pronouns, wasn't hiding HIV from a partner. We published a piece with the Marshall Project earlier this year in March. I implore you to please go read it. It is one of the most important things I've ever written in my life about this trans male who was imprisoned by this judge for, the judge said, exposing another individual to HIV when it was medically impossible that HIV could have been passed on, and indeed was not passed on. The judge tacked on an extra month in jail because the judge did not like what this defendant was wearing. In a fun-related news, the judge also hit someone with his car earlier this year and paid a $400 fine. So that's what we're talking about when we cover these issues. This is one by Spectrum News, a bill to ban conversion therapy. This was interviews done that a number of media organizations have actually gotten together, and a lot of LGBTQ organizations have petitioned Spectrum over and over to please take this piece down. It's a piece that both sides conversion therapy, which is denounced by every major medical and psychological organization. And the way that it was presented in the media as if there's another side to it, even though there is no proof whatsoever that conversion therapy changes anyone's sexual orientation or gender identity. And in fact, does the exact opposite. It increases suicidal ideation, anxiety, and depression. This article still remains up despite all of these organizations getting together and begging for this to be taken down. Here's one, a controversial Pride Festival draws supporters and protesters. If you read this article, you would think that there were equal parts protesters and supporters. That is not the case at all. There were 3 protesters and there were hundreds of Pride goers. But the way that the media presents these things as if, again, it's that both sidesing, as if they are equal. Same thing here, same Pride Festival. The way that it was covered in the news was that they were equal, but also they printed some really harmful, negative language, hateful, violent language. And that's just not something that we would ever reprint in that way. And again, here's the end of this story, sentenced to 1 year for hiding HIV with a partner. That is not what happened. So that one's really problematic. This is one that we created a little meme about, last one that I'm showing, and I'm almost done. We're almost through all our slides. They dead named this individual. So the blacked out box there, they printed the individual's birth name, even though the individual legally changed their name. And here's a nice example of the way that the Buckeye Flame and what our mission is to do here in Ohio. Here's the Fox News headline, trans woman faces indecent exposure. Here's the Cleveland.com headline, trans woman charged with public indecency. Here's the Buckeye Flames headline about the exact same story. This was a mission caught on video from an Ohio City Council president to bar this individual from a locker room at the YMCA, even though the YMCA said we are totally A-okay with it. And this is why the Buckeye Flame exists, because we cover LGBTQ voices in a much different way than other outlets. That's what we are all about. So again, if you've not subscribed, I feel like I almost got it done in 15 minutes. I went a little over. If you've not subscribed, please, those numbers make a huge difference to us. If you want to get in touch with me, please do email me. And it is our 4th birthday, and we are running a campaign right now. We're gonna do a birthday party at the end of the month. If you are in a position to donate, and I'm not gonna get up and get it, it's right over there. We need donations. We are a 501c3. We are about to have another full-time writer start in July 8th. This full-time writer will be the only LGBTQ rural beat reporter in the entire United States. No other news outlet is committed to amplifying LGBTQ plus rural voices, and that is key to our work. So we're really excited about that. So if you are in a position to donate, we have different levels on the website. If you donate today, I'm just going to make this up right now. If you donate at the $12.50 level, we'll send you bracelets and stickers. If you're able to donate at the $25 a month level, which would be incredible for us and make a huge difference, I will send you a Buckeye Flame hoodie, and we have Buckeye Flame hoodies. So if you're able to do that, again, it makes such a huge difference to what we do. I tell anyone who will listen, this is the most important thing I have ever done in my life. If you're working with an organization, we have some advertisers on here right now. So if you're working with an organization that needs advertising support, we would love it. And if you know anything about grants and think, hey, this is ideally suited for what you all do, again, this cannot go away. Ohio cannot be without an LGBTQ publication, given everything that I just showed you. And breathe. I'm done.
And you did great. And I think you elevated just why the Buckeye Flames voice is so important for our community, for our state. Can you talk a little bit about the origin of the Buckeye Flame and how did you come to be involved? And who's your team?
Yeah, absolutely. I was working for Prism Magazine, which was a statewide publication, and on a Friday in 2020, they called me and just said, hey, we're done. There's some sort of new pandemic-y thing that I'm sure will go away in a week. And so we are done publishing. And I immediately thought, this state, given everything happening in the State House, and also given queer joy that's not being amplified. I did not just show you one example of queer joy, because queer joy is not often covered in the media, and we are committed to amplifying queer joy. We cannot be without an LGBTQ publication. And so I called people that day. Within a couple weeks, we were a 501c3 with a board, and we launched 3 months later. We have an incredible board of folks from across the state who are committed to doing this work. We have a full-time staff writer. We need a development person. So that's part of our mission, is to raise the funds for development to keep us going in that way. And thanks to the generous support of the Cleveland Foundation, I'm actually taking a break from Baldwin Wallace this fall solely to focus on the Buckeye Flame. So we have a wonderful team of people. It was Pride on Saturday here in Cleveland, people coming up to us saying, we read you. I'm like, what are you talking about? How do you even know us? That's weird. You're weird. Whereas you should just say, thank you. And please keep reading. So it's been an incredible journey.
So you mentioned bringing on a reporter to be able to focus on the rural areas of the state. And for those of us here in Cleveland, we see what's happening with Pride and the organizations. What can you share about what the rural areas look like? What are the issues? What are some of the things that you hope to cover through that reporter?
Almost all, with the exception of one representative, and this is a bipartisan conversation. This is me factually telling you that all of the anti-LGBTQ bills are factually proposed by Republicans. With the exception of one of those Republicans who's in the Cincinnati area, every single one of the individuals proposing these anti-LGBTQ bills are rural representatives. You have an area like Salina, Ohio, where not only is their representative Angie King, and she's one of the co-sponsors of the drag band, so I'll see her in a few minutes online. Not only is she one of the co-sponsors of that band, but last year at the Salina Pride, and I need you all to picture this, you're at your local Pride celebration and you look across the street and there are people protesting against your pride. There are two groups standing 20 feet, no more, apart from each other. Neo-Nazis and Christian fundamentalists, including your state representative. So Angie King, their state representative. Can you imagine? I mean, I guess, right, that's part of the bias that we have in Cleveland, that we don't always remember that that's what thing, and I know people are calling from all over, dialing in from all over. But that's what our rural colleagues are dealing with. They're dealing with death threats. They're dealing, I mean, just here in Broadview Heights, you had a city councilman just a few weeks ago basically inviting the Proud Boys, not the Pride Boys, the Proud Boys to protest their local Pride celebration, which is this weekend. So it's just a much different climate there in the rural areas, and we are committed to amplifying their voices. There is, I think folks forget about this, that there was a medical conscience clause passed a few years ago that allows any healthcare provider in Ohio to refuse care if it violates their moral, ethical, or religious beliefs. Well, here in Cleveland, whatever, then I'll find somebody else. In a rural area, if that's your specialist, there isn't anybody else. So it's affecting them quite deeply there. I'm really excited for us to not only publish that content, but to role model for other media outlets how important it is to have a focus on rural LGBTQ plus voices.
You mentioned quite a few of the issues that you are currently focused on. As you look ahead and see what's on the horizon, what are some of the issues that you're starting to pay attention to that others should become aware of?
Yeah, I'm not just saying this because Julie's on here, but we do have a particular focus on these 6 laws. I love covering things that people don't know about. Julie will nod her head to this. I would challenge folks to find a ton of people within the LGBTQ plus community who know about these 6 laws that criminalize living with HIV. They're not widely known. They're decades old. And yet the research that just came out a few months ago says that, well, first of all, of course they exist. We didn't need research to prove that, but that they are actually being used to prosecute folks, and disproportionately so in Cuyahoga County. And so it's really important for us to cover those issues. I was just saying to someone online, things like the school board in New Richmond, Ohio, which is a place, I looked it up. The school board banned all representations of rainbows. No teacher is allowed to have any representation of rainbows in their classroom. I think one of the keys for us in looking at the coverage, Rachel, is that we do rely on our readers. We center on our homepage, submit a story, because we need your help. If there's something happening, we can't get to every story, and that breaks my heart. I mean, the number of stories that we get that we can't cover is just the worst. We wish we could, but we do rely on folks because we're able to see some of the patterns and write some of the 42,000-foot stories. I don't even know what planes fly at. Let's say it's that. That might be too high. But it's really important that we can see the system approach and rely on you all to tell us about what's happening in your neck of the woods.
As you see the stories, as you see the headlines, how do you manage for yourself and support others on your team with the misinformation, the hate, the misunderstanding that exists with it about the LGBTQ community?
Yeah, you know, a really important piece for us is that at the end of almost every article, we have Ignite action bullets. That if the piece inspired something in you, that we give, you know, if we activated your energy, I think it's irresponsible for us to not give you some options to direct that energy. And so that's a great outlet, and that really helps me to put those at the end so that we're giving people something to do. Personally, for me, I'm doing a lot better. I remember that when I first started covering these hearings, I sat in this chair and I remember being despondent 4 years ago because it's not just that I'm writing about these things, but oh, this parade of pastors is talking about me. They're saying I'm going to hell. Now, I'm probably not because I'm a gay Jew, so we don't really care about hell. But they're saying this about my people, right? And so I've gotten a lot better. I will tell you, and I did put this online earlier today, I think that this hearing that either started, I don't think they've gotten to it yet. They will in the next 30 minutes, I'm sure, will be one of the most anti-LGBTQ hearings in the history of the State House. I really believe that. So I don't know that today is going to be a great one for my wellness, but in some ways, because I have a purpose, right? Because I have this incredible, incredible privilege, which I do. It's one of the privileges that Baldwin Wallace affords me, and just my copious amounts of male privilege and white privilege to do things like this. It comes with that responsibility to take hearings like this and translate them for people who are reading so that they know what's going on. So I think because I have that purpose-driven path forward, it's really helpful for me to maintain some semblance of wellness. Some. Catch me on a day. Ask me at 3 p.m. I don't think it's going to be good today, folks.
Again, you mentioned that you had done a partnership piece with the Marshall Project. Can you talk to some other partnerships you have with kind of local community-based journalism?
Yeah, we love partnering with other folks. We love that we've carved out a niche. Some of you have come to my shameless self-promotion workshop. It is all about staying on brand. We are LGBTQ plus Ohio. We resist any and all pressure, of which there is daily, to cover things that are not LGBTQ plus Ohio. That includes from advertisers. We could pay for a huge staff if we published every gambling story that is sent our way. Even when we do sponsored content, of which there are examples of some of you that we've worked with online, I love shouting out folks like the Alzheimer's Association, where we just published something the other day that was focused on a gay pastor who did amazing advocacy for Alzheimer's in the State House. That's sponsored content, but it's still on brand for us. So that's a key piece in our working with other outlets. We will only republish something if it's on brand for us. We also, if you go straight to our homepage, it says steal our stories. All of our content is free for other outlets. We believe so deeply in what we're doing, and we would rather they run our stuff than some of the crap they're running that you saw of the headlines I showed you earlier. Just run our stuff. So that's created a ton of partnerships with organizations like the Marshall Project, with Signal, who gives us editorial support, which is incredible. With the 19th republishes our stuff, which is a wonderful national organization, and a lot of local outlets like Cleveland Scene, Cincinnati City Beat, Columbus Underground. So we really value those partnerships, and it really does get our content out there. For them, it's great. It's free content. A lot of these places, I think Cincinnati City Beat would probably say they have an LGBTQ beat reporter. They don't. It's us. We're all here for it.
Well, we have time for one more question. As you
Sure.
look ahead to the next year or two of the Buckeye Flame, what is your vision for the publication?
Yeah, that's a great question. We do have a strategic plan that we really stick to. There are 2 positions we need to add, period. We need to add a development person. I'm doing all right, but we need to add a development person, and we absolutely must add a reporter who is solely focused on LGBTQ plus communities of color. We absolutely must. So it's about getting the support for that. And so a lot of what my time is being freed up for this fall is to apply for grants to shore that up. And that is the goal, to add more content, but specifically to support and amplify LGBTQ communities of color across Ohio.
Well, Ken, we thank you for joining us today and for all that you are doing to raise awareness and advocate for our LGBTQ plus community across the entire state of Ohio. Thank you for all that you do.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.